Hey, what's up, everyone? It's Morey Croson here from the Performance Lab in California, and we have another new breakdown for you today on Jordan Love, the quarterback out of Utah State. And before we hop into it, I just want to say if you like these videos, you can go ahead and subscribe to this channel. We always do breakdowns for different types of athletes, pitchers, quarterbacks, running, and sprinters, and receivers, and also provide a large amount of different exercises. There's just a lot of overall value we want to have behind the channel, and so you could also check out more of their other videos, or just like and subscribe to be able to get the notifications for when we post. And without further ado, we'll hop right into the breakdown. And I really think Jordan Love is a mystery that every year it seems to be during the draft. It's like, I wonder, what this guy's going to end up doing and how it's going to end up unfolding for him. And it seems like Jordan Love's going to be the big mystery here. He had a lot of interceptions when he played, and there are some things that he does within his mechanics that might be a little bit suspect, but it's going to be interesting to see what ends up happening. So we'll go in and get into the breakdown. First thing that stands out is he has a pretty long stride, and a lot of times when people that have a little bit longer strides, they have a little bit harder time from an accuracy standpoint, just because it's a little bit more difficult to get a consistent push onto that front leg. And so you can see, as he's pushing on the front leg, he has such a nice stroke though, so as he's coming back and through, he drives that elbow through really nicely. He gets really good rotation through the hips and makes it so his hips are really leading the way here. He also makes it so that front arm is in a really good position. The only thing that I would say is that as he loads back, you can see that the ball, the nose of the football kind of flares up, and I think that impacts how, again, that some of that consistency behind the throw. Sorry, we can zoom out here. You can see it a little bit better on this one, where as he's going, see how the nose of the football kind of flares up like that? What that does is it just creates a large amount of internal rotation on the front part of the shoulder there, right? See how it gets a large amount of internal rotation, which does make it so there's a good amount of load within that shoulder, right? And you do want to put certain amounts of load, certain amounts of stretch within the muscle in order to make it so then you can increase the ability to get that stretch shortening cycle. That's how you generate force. Like when you're going to jump, you want to be able to load into your hips, load into your knees, and then from there, and then that creates a certain stretch within the muscle, and then it shortens, and it rapidly shortens, and that what creates the power to jump higher or throw the ball further. And so you do want to have that, but to do it so much, what ends up happening is now it takes a long time to be able to get your arm back in an external rotation, and then you're just a little bit off sync. So see how his body's starting to rotate here, and he's in a position where he's ready to throw, and he's just off by like a couple hundredths of a second, and then he ends up coming through. And I think that couple hundredths of a second just makes it so it's harder for him to be consistent. You see this ball ends up being a little bit behind the receiver here, and then that also ends up being the thing too. He knows that the ball is behind, and now for this one, he goes and just is able to kind of stare the receiver down, which in the NFL you're not going to be able to go and look at the receiver down like this and be able to just throw the ball and try to be as accurate as possible. You're going to have to look at defenses. You're not going to be able to just make such an obvious type of a throw, but you can still see he goes and he flares the nose of the football up. I think his elbow position is good there. Just the wrist and the initial load. He gets that foot down a little bit better spot. I still think he's a little bit farther out in front of him, but you can see he's working on getting the foot a little bit closer. And I think as he gets the ball or the foot closer, I think that this is something that he's actually working on probably with his coach, is get that front foot a little bit closer, because you can see when he does, now he's able to be a little bit more accurate during the actual throw. Okay, so that's going to be something. Obviously, Jordan Love is an NFL quarterback, so I'm not going to say that I could do these things as good, but I think it just helps to be able to get an understanding of what are some of the things that these guys can improve on to make it so then you can be a little bit more accurate, or you can work on making it so your mechanics are just that much better. So now we're going to look to see the deep ball. The big thing that I would say with the deep ball here is he's just leaned so far back. I'm doing a series right now on how to throw a further deep ball, and I give some examples of what does a good deep ball look like compared to a deep ball that is not as good. And the big thing, and Josh Allen was the big person I used, and because he obviously has such a strong arm, but he does such a great job of shifting his body weight from his back leg onto his front leg. We can see here just not getting his overall force all the way forward within the spine. He's really staying back, so now he releases the ball, and he gets away with it a little bit, but he releases the ball really when all of the arm is coming upwards, right, instead of making it so that he's coming downward on the ball. And that's what Josh Allen does really good, is he's coming down on the ball when he's releasing, which makes his ball look so pretty in the air. And he's not getting his torso all the way through. He's really far back. He does a good job getting his hips, but his torso is not all the way through. You can see how he's leaning back as he's actually releasing the throw, which I think is impacting his overall result. So, just a couple things that I would say are really good things that you could take away from to help in making sure you can throw the ball further. Making sure that you're getting those hips all the way into the throw, making sure that you're creating a nice loading sequence, so you don't want to let that elbow flare up too high and then keep that ball too low, because then that ends up dropping that elbow. See what ends up happening here, where he goes here and then drops that elbow down and then comes back through, and you can see how he's even leaning back a lot when he's throwing. Head's kind of arched back. So there's definitely some things that I think you can work on from a mechanics perspective that would help him in being significantly more accurate. He's obviously somebody that can put a lot of force behind the ball because he's an overall bigger guy, but some of these things that he's doing, somebody like Drew Brees or Russell Wilson doesn't do, because they have to be a lot more effective and efficient with their overall mechanics. So being able to transfer all the way forward and do some of these things are important. I do think overall, obviously Jordan Love has had a lot of success at the Division I level, and he has a very, very strong arm, like I said. So being able to work on some of these mechanic things should help him in being more accurate, which I hope, if he's able to be more accurate, then he'd be able to have a lot more success here at the next level. So that's kind of the breakdown there. And I don't mean to go and be too hard on Jordan Love here. I just want to make it so you guys can get an understanding from a biomechanical standpoint what we've seen as being the most efficient and effective way to throw the football, and kind of compare that with what Jordan Love's doing in his throw. So if you guys have any questions, we'd be happy to hear from you. Also, check out the How to Throw Further video series down below. It is absolutely free for you, so it should give you a lot of really good information to be able to understand exactly some of these concepts that I'm talking about. And again, I give some examples for you too, some exercises, some drills, things that just help you out as a quarterback. Or you can check out some of our programs, some of our breakdowns. If you want to get a breakdown like this, we would be happy to do that. It really helps, I think, in understanding in slow motion what it is that you're doing. Obviously, Jordan Love probably has guys that are doing this for him, and he's probably working on these certain parts of the mechanics. So if you're not looking at your film, not looking at yourself throw, then I think you're doing yourself a disservice in being able to develop the most of your ability in throwing the football. All right, let me know if you guys have any questions, and we'll talk soon.